G'day world, Chris Hogan coming to you live from Rise Conference. Thanks to our partners Invest HK, and I'm here with Dennis Plomp, Principal of Nest Ventures. How are you, Dennis?
Hi, good morning. Very well, actually. This is already the third day of Rise, so a little bit tired, but doing very well.
Holding is water.
It's just water, but after a few coffees earlier this morning.
Very good. So, Dennis, I asked you here because effectively I want to do a investment for dummies for startups.
Yeah.
I've never had an investment myself, so I'm actually a bit green to it as well. So, firstly, how does it start out? What are the names? So we've got seed, we've got all of these other names, Series A, B, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
First of all, how does investment start?
Well, typically, if you really start your company, you either do it by yourself or you get some basically friends to help you out, some co-founders. It typically starts with putting a little bit of your own money in, or basically sustaining yourself, or helping you through this difficult first phase, financing your own costs that you have. So basically, that's really being self-funded. So that's basically pre-raising from others. That's where it all starts, and it can be a few months, or it can be basically years for others.
Yep.
It's up to the moment where you think, okay, we're getting somewhere. We need to raise a little bit more money because we now need to grow our business. Maybe there's someone that you need. You want to pay yourself a little bit of a salary, perhaps, just again to finance your own costs. Or some others that will only work with you if you can also pay them a bit of money. And typically that first phase is, sometimes it's called pre-seed. It's almost more you go to, quite often family, you go to friends, people that already know you, that trust you, that say, okay.
Friends, family, and fools?
That, again, exactly, that's really, for most people, that's really the first round.
Yep.
So that you don't go to people that have never heard of you initially, you really go to people that have known you, that you came across previous bosses. That's typically the first round.
Are you giving up equity for that, are you, normally?
Typically you would. Normally, at attractive rates, of course a low valuation. You're not going to give 40-50% of your company to an uncle or to an aunt. That's not a very smart way of doing it. But it's again, people that, and sometimes it doesn't even need to be equity. It can even be, for example, a loan against they'll just say, okay, pay me back in the future, maybe zero interest, or pay me a little bit of interest. So that would, of course, be great. Sometimes it doesn't even need to be equity. And then, typically after that phase, again, it's all getting a little bit more serious. And again, now you think, okay, amounts are getting a little bit bigger. Then I would really advise you do not directly think about VCs, etc. Typically, that round is really a full seed round, and then you go to angel investors, people that have made a bit of money, ideally in your industry, and it can really help you. So those rounds differs a little bit from market to market, differs from industry to industry, but let's say people that want to raise 250,000, 500,000, and then who do you try to?
That's still the seed.
That's really a seed round, and that's really people who can potentially help you because they really understand your market. So it can be someone who was active in your industry, maybe in slightly more traditional company. You sold his business, has a bit of money, and thinks, hey, if I have him or her behind me, that would be really great. That could really be also an advisor to my business, someone who could be a director of my business at one point.
Is there a magic percentage that gets given up, or what's too much, too little kind of thing?
Well, I don't know. Typically those rounds are a little bit 10-20%-ish. Again, be very careful with giving up too much equity, especially in those first few years, because it's very difficult to redo that later. Because later, it's really important that the team that actually does the work and that works hard and that needs to stay incentivized in the next few years, that they hold the majority of the shares. So if you give up a lot of equity in basically initially, you give those shares away to family and then later to angels, and then the shares that you have left, you need to distribute that among the guys that actually do the work, and that share percentage becomes too little, then you have a bit of an issue, and then later you need to try to repair that before you can raise money from more VCs, because they don't like those structures. Okay. They really want the people that actually do the work are also incentivized.
What's the other type? So before we get into Series A and Series B, and etc., apart from equity, what are the other types of, I guess, arrangements that occur?
So indeed, typically in the beginning, I would always say just keep it very simple. Just one type of shares, and those are also the shares that you can then sell to other investors. At what point, and that's typically you see that a little bit more when it comes to Series A or the round just before that. It's sometimes called a bridge round or pre-Series A. You can do something which is called a convertible loan, which is basically a loan that converts to equity at certain terms. For example, and why do you do that? One advantage, you don't yet have to put a number, you don't have to put a price on it. If you're still pre-Series A, it can be quite difficult to value your business. It can go well, and then your company would really make a jump in valuation, or basically it can go nowhere. So you're really at this inflection point. Putting a valuation on a company at that specific moment is really tough. So sometimes you could say, well, let's wait a little bit. I just basically get money. It's a way a loan, but if I do well and if I'm going to do a bigger fundraise in, let's say, 6, 12, 18 months from now, then those people would give you that money, would convert to equity at the price at that point in time, and quite often in return they get a bit of a discount. The discount can be, I don't know, again, anywhere between 10 to 25%. 20% is pretty common at the moment. So it's pretty easy. Those agreements are fairly simple, they're very straightforward, few pages, only a few things that you really have to negotiate with them, the amount that you're going to raise, and for example this discount percentage. And then you can just run with it. Again, those are quite often people who are also not extremely experienced. You don't really have a lead investor who's really set surprise. So in those in such a phase, a convertible loan can be a great other instrument of raising money. And something which is a little bit more recent, another way of raising money, which is the so-called ICO, so not giving up equity.
What does that stand for?
Initial coin offering. So not giving up equity in your business, but especially for companies that use blockchain as a
don't say that word. Don't say that word.
That use blockchain as a
Don't say that word. No, we can't.
Probably a whole specific topic.
Actually, don't say that word because it'll actually affect our social.
But that's a slightly more, that's a newer way of raising capital, raising money for your business. But I typically only would advise that a certain type of businesses, not to every business out there.
Okay, and for the actual startups who are getting the investors, what are they typically most worried about when getting investors? What do they find? Like, do they feel like they're giving up control of their company? Do they feel like they're answerable to somebody that as a founder, I'm only answerable to me, but then I get an investor and I'm like, oh, far out,
Well, it's a very good question. You should never give up control, because it's extremely important that in the first few years of a business, when it's hard work and that you actually do the work, that you control the business. It's extremely important. However, it is very important to realize that if other people invest in your business and they have given you money, that also your business over time needs to change a little bit. Right? They have given you not only the money but also their trust. So things like keep them updated on what you're actually doing, on what's going well, but also what's not going that very well.
So maybe actually better to, rather than just get the money and get the investor, actually get a mentor or get somebody that'll help you along the way.
That would be great. So that's one way of also maintaining that relationship, because it's extremely important that they think that you're doing a good job. So never confront them. Don't suddenly say thank you very much for the money. Be quiet for example, 12 or 18 months, and then say, oh, sorry, it didn't really work out, it's a complete failure, I'm going to do something else, which is quite often not a great thing to do. But also, if it goes extremely well and they haven't heard from you for 12 or 18 months, and then say, okay, now I'm going to raise more money. You said, why did you not? So keep them posted. If you're doing very well, it's always a great thing. If it's easier to get money from people who gave you money in the past, because they can see the progress, they can see that you're doing well. So typically, instead of constantly having to find new investors, if you have a good relationship with your existing investors, it can be a great, and maybe they don't have enough money to fully fund your next round, but that can be a great start. And a lot of new investors will always directly ask, can I talk to some existing investors? How happy are they with you? How good were you in terms of keeping them in the loop? For example, in terms of sending them monthly updates or quarterly updates, etc. And if they are actually not that happy, or they have never heard of you, basically, they don't really know how you progress or what you did in the past 12 or 18 months, it can be a bit of a red flag for new investors.
Great. Well, I'm sure we could talk for a long time on this topic.
Sure.
So I'll cut it off there. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We're live on facebook.com/Beach City Life. We're also found on YouTube and LinkedIn. Just search for Beach City. Thanks so much, Dennis. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.